Hello, and thank you for joining us today. I'm your host, Matt Muratore. Today we'll be discussing our number one industry in Plymouth, which is tourism, and how it intersects with state government. My first guest is the Director of Marketing for the Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau. She has been with the Visitors Bureau since 2001 and is a 35-year resident of Kingston. Please welcome Paula Fischer. And my second guest is the Executive Director of Destination Plymouth, a nonprofit that is dedicated to marketing the town of Plymouth, and is also the Executive Director of the Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau that serves as a regional tourism council for the 27 communities in Plymouth County. Please welcome Paul Cripps. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having us.
Nice to be here.
So what we first do on this show is kind of let our audience know who you are. So why don't we start with you, Paula, and tell us who is Paula Fischer.
Okay. Well, currently, as you stated, I'm the Director of Marketing for the Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau, which means...
That's a mouthful.
It is, it is. My whole position is to try to think of any way I can to get more people to think of Plymouth and Plymouth County as a great place to spend their vacation time. I got interested in the tourism industry basically back in 1986 when I joined Plymouth Plantation as a colonial interpreter, or better known as pilgrims. And starting on that level, being with the visitor and pretending to be somebody else, and I really loved it. But I reached a point where I thought it would be interesting to join the marketing and public relations department, stuffing envelopes, and it just built and built and built until I was out actually literally going around the world promoting Plymouth Plantation as a place to visit.
Wow,
yeah,
fascinating.
It really was. And then it lend itself into this position here with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, which means that I get to promote even more of what this wonderful region has to offer to the visitor.
So you were at the plantation until you took this job in 2001?
Pretty much. There were a few years in between where my husband's job took us actually overseas, and we were living in other places, but I couldn't wait to get back to Plymouth and join this great industry again.
Where were some of the most fascinating places you went to when you were with the plantation?
Well, certainly, just being in London, and I was with the executive director of the State Office of Travel and Tourism at the time. Her name was Sarah Graham Mann, and I remember thinking, I'm kind of like, oh my God, this is incredible. And she looked at me, she says, isn't this incredible? And I said, oh, she's as excited as I am. So certainly going to London, because of, I think, a lot, the pilgrim tie with, with the pilgrims and the English and everything. But certainly, I know one of the events that I went to was actually in Sao Paulo, Brazil, in Argentina. That was with Massport when a lot of money was being spent. And I never thought I'd get out of my hometown of New Bedford, never mind be traveling the world promoting this place. So it was really wonderful.
Well, it's fascinating how the plantation has, of course they have visitors from all over the world, but I didn't realize that, that they actually go out to all over the world to actually promote it, to bring people here.
In fact, back then, the plantation was doing more of it than the Convention and Visitors Bureau was. They were actually, the Convention and Visitors Bureau was putting money into the pilgrims going, because back then we'd actually often go out in costume. In fact, one year, the person that I followed, she was actually in the Christmas parade in London in her pilgrim costume on a beautiful horse-drawn carriage with a lobster, if somebody in a lobster costume sitting next to her. But she started out the Christmas, London Christmas parade. So, but I give the plantation a lot of credit for knowing that it was the way to go. Because up until that time, like so many museums, it's like if I build it, they will come. You gotta let them know you're here.
Well, that's what surprised me about it. I didn't realize that, because that's usually the way it is.
Yeah,
you build it and they'll show up, but you gotta get out there. That's great. How long were you actually a pilgrim for? How many years?
3 years in the village, the Pilgrim Village back then. It's the English Village now. And then for the next 7 or 8 or 9 years, I had a costume, and once in a while I'd be back there. But usually I was in a costume off at a travel trade show, or Berlin, Germany. I've been to Berlin probably more than a dozen times, because that's the largest travel trade show in the world. And I think people tend to think of Plymouth, America's hometown, kind of quaint. I don't think they realize the money that goes into us literally traveling the world, promoting this area as a place to visit. One of the main things with tourism, they say to you very often, is if you've got something nobody else has, you've got to push that. We are so lucky, because we're the only ones who have the Plymouth story, the Pilgrim story.
That's great.
So.
And you live in Kingston.
Live in Kingston,
and this is actually broadcast, one of the towns we broadcast in is Kingston too, so that's great. That's great. Oh, sorry, I forgot you were here.
No, that's fine. That's fine. It's nice to have a break.
Paul, why don't you tell people, for the handful of people that don't know who you are,
oh, I'm sure
who is Paul Cripps?
Well, I've been in the Plymouth area since the 70s. I worked at the Plymouth-Kingston line at the Grossman's that used to be there. And I enjoyed it very much. It was a great company. but I wanted to take a year off. So I, like Paula, went to work at Plymouth Plantation in 1980. And they made the mistake of making me one of the supervisors. So not only was I a pilgrim, I interviewed, hired, trained, evaluated, and sometimes had to fire pilgrims. But it was great because it was
Why would you fire a pilgrim?
if you have to be the right person to do that job.
I guess if you get out of character, huh?
No, it's usually something other than that.
We won't get into that then. Did you hire Paula?
I did.
You did?
I
Okay.
hired all of
Okay.
the best
Okay.
pilgrims,
Yeah.
and there are many of them out there
Yeah.
who know exactly who I'm talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
But it's in the same way that, that Paula got into the international and even just the domestic trade show stuff, we were being sent out. They didn't have anybody to go to Japan, so they were, Paul, do you want to go to Japan? Sure, I'll go to Japan. They just didn't have the staff. So I went and I got the bug. It was one of those things that, like Paula says, they don't know about us unless we tell them. They have an idea of the Pilgrim story, but they don't know the detail and they don't know why should they come here. Now, they're not going to come here from Tokyo just to come to Plymouth. We know that, and when we market, and we'll probably talk about that a little later, it's Boston, it's Plymouth, it's the Cape. It could be even Newport, you know, across the border into Rhode Island or something. It could be the Berkshires. When we get people here, we want to move them around, but we certainly want them to come here and stay here for a while. So after 18 years of working at Plymouth Plantation in various roles, I ended up being hired by Destination Plymouth in 2000. And then I ended up sort of running both the Convention and Visitors Bureau and Destination Plymouth in 2005 or 2006, and we've just been doing it ever since.
So talk about the difference between the two.
Yeah, there
A
are
lot of people
people
are confused by that.
There
Yeah,
are,
yeah.
and it's completely understandable. Destination Plymouth is what's called a DMO in our lingo, a Destination Management Organization. So for Destination Plymouth, we work only for the town of Plymouth. We have a contract with the town. They give us some of the local room tax money that comes in, and we add to that membership money, advertising money, and whatever else we can fish together. And so we market Plymouth. Plymouth County Convention and Visitors Bureau is the Regional Tourism Council. So where Destination Plymouth is for the town, the Regional Tourism Council represents all of Plymouth County. So what we've done is cut out the redundancy. You don't have two executive directors. You don't have two this, that, and the other thing. You have one marketing director who really, even though she doesn't officially work for Destination Plymouth, works for Destination Plymouth. I run both. There are other people in the staff that split their paycheck between the two organizations, which means we can use more money further away to get people to come here. So the Regional Tourism Council side, where the rooms tax, again, it comes in from the state side. Okay. So we've got local tax and state tax.
And you can mix them together to have people.
You can, as long as the proportion is correct.
Okay.
Because we do use Plymouth money. Plymouth is always the focus. And the beautiful thing about Plymouth County is everyone in Plymouth County knows that Plymouth, the town of Plymouth, is the jewel in the crown. They're going to come here first, and then they're going to go out to other places.
All the
in
towns
the county.
don't resent that. They just
They
accept
don't.
that.
In
They
fact,
accept
it's a great boon for them because we're room deficient, in my opinion, in the town of Plymouth. So we'll fill rooms up here in Plymouth, and then we're sending them to Middleborough or Wareham or Kingston. There's a great renovation going on the property in Kingston. Rockland is with us. Hull is with us. But we'll fill those rooms too. And then we send them out to Barnstable County, Bristol County, Norfolk County. We know that if tourism is successful within the whole state, that everybody benefits, particularly the state in its allocations for monies for the other regions as well. So it's, I hate saying, it's the boat, you know, all boats rise with the tide sort of thing.
Sure.
So that's really how it comes down to, is a portion of the state taxes, the local taxes, are infused together with those other monies.
Got it. So, Paula, let's get into the marketing. So tell us specifically what you do for marketing. And
Oh, I work way too hard. Is what I do.
I think she's looking for a raise.
Yeah.
She just got one, didn't she? I don't know.
It's interesting. A daily, 3 or 4 times a week, whatever, you get somebody calling saying, would you like to be in my publication? Would you like to be on a banner on my webpage? And so I'm inundated with requests. And the minute you put an ad in one thing, a similar magazine, whatever, will see it, obviously, and ask you to be in it. So a lot of it comes down to looking at all of these options. And my problem is I always think that every single one of them is probably where we should be.
I would be like you.
Oh,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, oh, I don't
yeah.
know which one to choose.
I do.
Yeah, well, that's,
Well,
thank
you must
heaven,
have a certain
Paul here.
budget, though, right?
Well, we do. We have
Yeah.
a certain budget, and as Paul said, some of the money is coming in through DP and the state money, but we do have a budget we have to look at, and it's a matter of some things I know automatically. Our industry basically feels that if it's going to be a sports magazine, I get called by Patriots magazines and Red Sox magazines. In most cases, the women make the decision about where to visit. So most of our people say, we're not going to put an ad in a sports magazine. So at least I've got that off for me. But it might be print ads, which we're still quite heavy on print ads, which what a lot of people aren't, but we really think it's important. Just like we print brochures, 60,000 Destination Plymouth brochures a year and 25,000 of the Plymouth County brochures a year, which is a magazine now, because we know people like to have that something in hand.
And how do they get those magazines? Are they
In our case, the Plymouth people get theirs delivered to their home. So every year, every Plymouth resident gets the Destination Plymouth Dining, Shopping, and Activities Guide. The other ones, we have found the best thing is to give it to the people who ask for it. We used to print a lot more, and you're never really sure if a distribution company, just where they were going. And now we give it to those who ask. And last year, of the 25,000 we printed, we only had 6 or 7 cases left at the end of the year. So we're happy with our ratio. But and ours is a lure piece. Our piece is meant to be with someone a little further away who has to decide about coming in, as opposed to the Destination Plymouth piece is kind of, once you're here, it helps you decide what to do. And it might be, we just finished an airline video that's going to be 58,000 flights, I think, for American airline
Airlines.
video that's going to launch. I mean, that's something a lot of regional tourism councils can't do. You know, it was amazingly, it wasn't that bad at all.
Really, yeah.
It fit into the budget.
If you're a shrewd negotiator.
Is it for a certain period of time? Is that right?
It is.
Yeah.
It'll be for the summer. And we have assistants too. The Visitor Services Board within the town of Plymouth has the control of the rooms tax money that can be used for special events, visitor services, and marketing. So in this case, that was an ask we put in for that money, and they thought it was a good idea, so we're doing that.
I was just on Facebook the other day, and someone was at Logan Airport, and if you go to the international terminal, and it can move around, there's a really beautiful banner promoting Plymouth County and the 400th, and somebody tweeted it or whatever on, and it was like, you can thank your local CVB for that. And that cost us nothing. That was a matter of, as I said, somebody called in or emailed in, I saw it and said, oh, this looks really important. And with our Shields Design Studio creating the banner in a very short time, it was up, and it cost us absolutely nothing to be there. And it's beautiful, and I'm sure people are going to look at it. So again, it might be an airport banner. It might be looking for artists to decorate rocking chairs at Logan Airport. Different artists representing different parts of the region. A cranberry chair for Cranberry Country, a chair from the Brockton area that represented the boxing that's associated with Brockton, and typical Mayflower 2, Plymouth Rock, and all that for this. So you just never know what's going to come your way that you can actually help promote Plymouth.
And people are visual too. I know for myself and my family, if we see commercials for Disney World or the Hilton Head or something, oh boy, we should really go there. I mean, it's what's fresh in your mind. It's a discussion that we have with the administration a lot about tourism and the importance of tourism and investing the dollars in tourism because of this, so we can continue with that. I know there's two sides of the coin, but I really believe that by investing those dollars to market, that you'll see the rewards. And I know you've got some stats on that too.
It's not by accident. We don't just throw things out there, carelessly. In the early '90s, Plymouth Plantation. I ended up my career at Plymouth Plantation, up running visitor services, and a system was put in play that would record either a zip code or an assigned country code. So we know who the top 10 origins that come to Plymouth Plantation. And the chances are that they're going to be coming to the rest of the town as well. So we target market, and a lot of people don't realize that California, Texas, Ohio, those are top origins. New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Florida. Yeah. And overseas, it's the United Kingdom, Canada, France, Germany for sure, and Japan. And
that's because you've been targeting these areas.
Well, is it? You know, it's we see it, we target it. Are the numbers increasing because we're targeting? Well, I think it's just one thing leads to the other, and the ratio is very successful. And we've seen too, when we drop an ad somewhere, for example, AAA California, one year we didn't do it. The next year we did it. The numbers went up 13% from California. So we know marketing works.
Let's talk about some of the stats that have been going on the last few years.
Well, I'll start locally. We've been crawling our way like every other region in the state, crawling our way up percentage at a time by either occupancy or rate per available room. But I think we're doing a good job because last year the rooms tax increased 22% in 1 year over last year, and last year was a good year. Now, some of the things that move the needle on that, Merbeau Inn and Spa, but there's only 50 rooms there, you know. So I think that does make a huge difference, but you're seeing the others coming up as well. And now you're seeing renovations. You've got the Radisson just sold. They are now Hotel 1620. They'll go from a 3-star to probably a full 4-star. That drives the revenue up even more. And what happens with that money? It goes back into reinvesting in marketing and a lot of other things. And in the town of Plymouth, 55% of the rooms tax goes to the general fund, which is a tremendous boon. And it's the visitor spend in Plymouth is $350 million. In Plymouth County altogether, it's over $600 million per year. In the state, it's $19.5 billion.
Spent on tourism.
That's what visitors are spending. So the numbers are compelling. The only downside of it is market share for the state is going down. And we've been working with legislators.
Yeah, why is that, do you think?
Well, we're not, as a state, we're not fighting with both shoes on here. We need to really be going out at this thing and putting more money into promotion. New York, for example, is spending $55 million. And as a combined state, well, the regional tourism councils share $6 million, which, by the way, we want that to go up to 10. I'm sure you've heard that story before.
We're working on that through the budget.
And the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism will need some measure of money also so that it can compete not only in the domestic market, but certainly to feed the 55 direct flights that are coming into Logan right now. If we don't support those flights will go away. If we do support those flights and people come here, they will spend money, they will stay here longer.
Yeah. Talk about the regional tourist councils, because that's really the state, the broader state part of this whole thing. Explain to people how that works, how many there are, et cetera.
Well, there are 16, which is a few too many, but I have no control over that. Each region, we're sort of like the specialists. Nobody knows Plymouth County like we know Plymouth County. No one knows the north of Boston area like Anne Marie Casey. She's the RTC director up there. So because we know what nuances we have that the other guy doesn't have, or is there a way of turning what we have that they have is more compelling to come here, we're the people who do that. If you're controlling tourism from the state level, you're using the broad brush strokes and you're using your local experts to help tell that story, those different stories in the state of Massachusetts. And that is one of our strengths also. You've got the Berkshires, you've got the coastline, you've got arts and culture all throughout, which I understand you're talking with somebody, Anita Walker.
Yeah, we had Anita Walker on last month. We're talking about that. Yes, exactly.
So you can just see that there are so many different stories to tell. The American Revolution. It's not just the Pilgrim story. It's Boston.
The history.
It's history. History is still significant and to the people who come here, but it's not the only thing. So you want to be historical, but you want to be fun. You want to have great food, which the town of Plymouth certainly does. You just want the convenience too of being able to go from one to the other.
And do the 16 tourism councils, do they work in collaboration, or are they fighting for the same dollars, or how does it work?
We're not fighting. I don't think they do fight.
Yeah.
For example, when I go to
They
Japan,
can benefit from each other then.
When I go to Japan, I represent north of Boston I will talk about Boston, of course, Plymouth County naturally, and Bristol County as well. Because again, I know that the visitor coming from Tokyo isn't just going to come to Plymouth. They're going to want to move around and see different things. And we do that in all of the countries that we go to. We have a very robust international marketing plan. And some of the others who might not have the funding for that are happy to put some money over to us so that they don't have to make the trip, but they trust us to make the trip for them.
Let's talk about the evolution of tourism over the last couple of decades that you've been involved. What do you think has made it grown so much in Plymouth and in Plymouth County?
Well,
You've seen it from from the beginning
it's true.
stages.
I mean, I think back to looking at some of the old pictures of Plymouth when it was so industrial, and that picture down by Plymouth Rock where the rock was gone, and it was just a kind of a flat dock, and it certainly all of a sudden, well, certainly the tercentenary of 400 in 1920, 1919, 20, 21. That's when a lot of people started to think, I think maybe we could do a little better by turning this into a tourist destination, and that really started.
So it went back that far
much.
then?
That, in my estimation, it really did. It went back that far. Certainly, Plymouth Rock has been where it is now since the late 1800s. So, and that definitely brought people. And that was when the boats were coming down from Boston, and love to see that again, having boats come down from Boston. That would bring quite a few tourists here. But I think the tercentenary started it, I think, and people started to realize that they should be adding other things that the tourists can do. And sometimes we'll get, somebody will send like an old ad, and it's amazing how many little buildings were little hotels back then. Certainly people are looking for the kind of hotels we have now, which is really wonderful. But I also think that until the state really started to create these regional tourism councils and talk to the different people in the regions, our organization actually is the Plymouth County Development Council, started in 1972 by a gentleman named Brooks Kelly. And they looked at each of the regions and said, gee, who do you think knows the most about their region that we can create these councils so that the state isn't trying to figure out what each region has to offer? And that was definitely, I think that was in the early 80s or maybe mid 80s when that all started. And I think that helped a lot so that you had people right in the area on the ground who knew a lot about the region to help tell them what to sell. And the state, I think they had a little more money back then too. Which draws me back a little bit to things like 9/11. Every tourism year seems to have something that gets in the way of tourism, and you're climbing and then you drop again.
Yeah, you started right at 9/11.
I did, literally a week after 9/11 was when I started the CVB, and things
challenge.
dropped. Oh, and the money that used to be Massport used to help support tourism, but we've climbed up again, and we just discovered New England is another organization that put a lot of time and money. Again, it was Sarah Graham Mann, the person who used to work at the plantation, who worked at the state level. She said, if we're going to market internationally, we've got to market as New England. And I think that was a wonderful idea. In fact, just a few weeks ago, we were at the Discover New England Summit with about 60 international tour operators who are focused on New England only, which you don't get that often. They're here to find out what they can do to send international travelers to New England. So I just think a lot more time and effort has gone into it. And like anything else, your learning curve. You learn what works and what doesn't, and you grow. And Plymouth is a great example of that. And the fact that we work together with Destination Plymouth, whereas some other regions are still kind of like, no, my money's not going to help anything but my own community.
Got it.
Different here.
Makes a difference. And what do you attribute to the growth of Plymouth just in the last 10 years?
I'd like to answer that. I think there's a sophistication that's been developing down here in Plymouth. If you look at some of the hotels that were here 20 years ago, they were not something that you would want your family to come and stay in. But now they are. So those old hotels have been either torn down or massive renovations have been done to them, which makes it easier for us to go out there and tell a true story that this is a great place to stay. But beyond that, you've got the sophistication of the downtown and waterfront area, in the town of Plymouth particularly, where I call the rubber turkey eraser shops are going away. And there are so many great little pubs and restaurants and good chic clothing stores, and this development feeds on itself, so that if you are that rubber turkey eraser shop, all of a sudden you're stuck in the middle of this culture that is going past you, and someone will come in and say the only spot left is that one, and someone will buy it and they'll put something in there that's worthwhile.
When I was on the Board of Selectmen in the early 2010, 2011, and these pubs and restaurants, we were being criticized that, oh my God, how many more bars do you need downtown? But all
they'll
of them
change.
have thrived.
Yes.
They're doing well. I mean, what did people know that, why were they moving in downtown? What did they know? And they're all still there.
Well, does it create itself, or do we create it? What is the combination of luck and skill that puts that forward? There were bar rooms downtown, like the sawdust, blood fest fights that you might find in a cow town in Texas or something, but they're not there anymore.
Right.
So we all have changed that. Not only the businesses, but the consumers that go to those businesses, and we are raising that up.
And I just got to say that too. I know I have older daughters who are in their late 20s, early 30s, and they much prefer them and their friends come to Plymouth now than to go to Boston now.
We hear
Yes.
that all the time. It's amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah, it really is. It really is.
No, this is our game to win, and we're winning it. And we have just a few years from now, we segue into that 2020 piece.
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes left, but talk about the 2020 piece real quickly, and what do you see for the future?
Well, first off, in the tourism world, we're doing very well here, Plymouth as a community, and we can fill our rooms. So what will the 400th do for us? Well, we'll still fill our rooms. We'll fill all the rooms. And the rate will go up, as the rates do. When you're popular, the rates go up. But we'll fill those other hotels that I mentioned earlier. The challenges that we'll have, and I think they're quite doable, will be, where do people park? Well, we have to have a transportation system in place. And if people are staying in hotels far away, we need to be able to shuttle them to a point here that we can disembark the visitors so they can go to the special events. Or if it's remote parking, the train coming down from Boston to the Plymouth station, I would love to see a more formalized version of that with even a visitor information center and shuttle pickup there. There are a lot of things that we can do to make that successful. But it's not just about the money, it's about the culture.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And the future is going to look brighter, not only for 2020, but beyond, because of all the work you folks have been doing over the last several years and what you continue to do. So we want to thank you for what you've been doing. Continue the good work. Us on the state level will keep supporting and doing what we can, because we know how important it is to not just Plymouth, but Plymouth County. So,
Appreciate
keep
that.
keep up the good work. Keep up the good work. And thank you both for coming
thank you.
today.
Our pleasure.
So I hope you enjoyed the show today. I want to thank both Paul and Paula for joining us today and discussing the importance of tourism in our region. I also want to thank the staff and the volunteers here at PAC TV for another great show and for all they do for our community. Thanks again for watching. We hope to see you again next time on State Matters.